it's just mind-blowing. I mean, where do you get that type of... Modern buildings now don't have this type of architecture, do they?
You look at the details it has, because, being a Grade 2 star listed building, anything's going to cost a fortune.
So what you see when you come in is these incredible reliefs, 3 on either side, and they're like nymphs rising from the sea.
The ceramic work on the walls and the floors, it's second to none. They really are a fine example of the very best of 19th century ceramic work, architectural ceramics.
When you walk past the Winter Gardens on Morecambe seafront today, the sweeping glass canopy and ornate red brickwork are impressive. Restoration work makes this building look loved and cared for, and it certainly is. But the original design and architecture of the Winter Gardens, Victoria Pavilion and Oriental Ballroom, was ingenious. As you'll hear, every feature had a specific purpose. William Morgan, an entrepreneur who owned the building in Victorian times, wanted visitors to his People's Palace to enjoy the best possible experience when they saw a show or heard a performer. He knew people would rather see a juggler than a lobster. For Professor Vanessa Toulmin, the chair of Morecambe Winter Gardens Preservation Trust, the early history of the building makes for a fascinating story.
The Winter Gardens building, 1897, was attached to the former Winter Gardens. So the Winter Gardens Theatre we call today was actually the Victoria Pavilion, and that opened in 1897, but it was attached to the original Winter Gardens, which is the Morecambe Bay Bath Company and Aquatic Company, which was this incredible building which had steam baths, aquatic 24 baths, septic tanks, seawater tanks, hot running water, cold water. And then they changed it into a variety theatre, and it didn't work. And it was taken over by a man called William Morgan, Bill Morgan, a very famous entrepreneur. He has a wonderful quote when he stopped it being an all-round baths and turned it into he called it the People's Palace. He was originally called it the People's Palace in the 1880s when he took over. He said this wonderful quote that people would rather see a juggler than a lobster. So you could imagine you went in and you see these fish tanks full of aquatic fish. And they had like a palmery and exotic flowers. So of course what happened, it was too hot in summer and freezing cold in winter.
So Bill Morgan turned it into an all-day entertainment venue, the latest and greatest of the pleasure palaces of the North, the People's Palace. And then the theatre was built on the site. Sadly, the original Winter Gardens, including the ballroom, was demolished in 1982. Literally like demolishing your house and keeping the conservatory.
An important part to understand, it was one complex. So you could walk from one end to the other. So you could walk from the ballroom into the Winter Gardens, and from the auditorium of the Winter Gardens, you walked down the steps and you paid extra to upgrade. So there were two connected buildings. And those problems structurally still we inherit, because obviously we've got to put all new infrastructure into a building which is now Grade 2 star listed, which never had it. So when the Winter Gardens opened, it had its own electric units. It was one of the first places in Morecambe to have electricity.
Ahead of its time, and for the visionary businessman from Bradford who came up with the idea to develop the gardens, surely a tremendous feeling of creating a building that will enjoy a proud future. With a capacity of 2,500, it was one of the largest theatres in the North West and was nicknamed the Albert Hall of the North. As Morecambe's popularity grew, so did the reputation of the Winter Gardens. It wasn't just during the Wakes weeks that saw the venue packed. The Gardens became a destination in its own right, in the heart of a thriving seaside resort. In the 1950s, the largest chain of variety theatres in the UK, Moss Empires, took it over, and its future looked secure. We all know what happened in the 1970s. Why go to Morecambe when you can go to Mallorca? As the crowds were distracted by the lure of foreign climes, the inevitable happened. In 1977, the curtain came down. The doors were locked and it looked like the good times in the garden were over. Volunteer Mike Lamb, who often welcomes our weekend visitors, recalls going back inside years after the gardens closed.
And I was working at, I think it will have been the Alhambra. There was a guy came in and he started asking me, we just got chatting, and he said, do you know any old theatres? So I said, yeah, what do you mean? He said, well, there was a TV programme called Lost Empires, and it was about the Empire theatres. And it's a drama starring Colin Firth, and it came out in, I don't know, 90s. We got chatting and I said, what are you looking for? So he said, well, I want somewhere that's a bit run down. So it's got to be. So I said, I know a couple of places in Morecambe. He said, would you mind coming with me? So I said, well, yeah, of course I will. Anything to get out and do something with it in theatre. So I managed to get to Morecambe. I managed to get the keys for the theatre, which I don't even know how I did that, because Vanessa wasn't in charge then. I think it was just locked up. And I remember getting the keys from somewhere, and we went in through the stage door. Everything was in darkness. The whole place was in darkness. It smelt dreadful. And as we walked around with a couple of torches, we walked into the auditorium with our torches, and I could hear water running down the walls. And I looked at this guy and I said, I'm sorry, mate, this won't do, will it? He said, no. He said, what a real shame. And I said, I love this place. I am so shocked and sad to see it.
As you heard in the first episode, the fight back to reopen the Winter Gardens really began because the people of Morecambe refused to let it die. Now, 4 decades after it's closed, restoration work is well underway. Do you remember I mentioned how parts of the building were specifically designed to give audience the best possible experience? One of those designs was an ingenious fibrous plaster ceiling, which is more than just attractive to look at. Our resident organist, Peter Jetson, explains more.
Now, the actual panels on the ceiling are designed specifically to be acoustic. All the fancy squirrels and patterns on them have been designed kind of scientifically. Yeah. And that was something, when you think back in the day, for them to be aware of that sort of thing, to improve the acoustics.
So the ceiling cost $680,000 to restore. And we had an incredible company called Hales and Howe who basically restored the ceiling. And that took 2 years. But we did it in phases so we could open in between. But the importance of the ceiling mustn't be underestimated because it's fibrous plaster hung by hemp ropes and modern sound vibrations cut through it. So it's got to be reinforced. So we've had 1,250 stainless steel wires put back into the ceiling, inserted underneath, so you can't see it. So the architecture of the Winter Gardens is, think of it as a train station. So the actual people who produced the steel were from Widnes, but the people who made the ceiling, the framework, were Handyside of Derby, who made train stations. So it's a huge Victorian train station, and then under is hung wooden slats, which then the ceiling plasters are hung from, and that's hung by a hemp system. And then each ceiling panel is architecturally balanced for the acoustic vibrations. So it's not flat, so it bounces off it. So there's 6 different patterns on that ceiling, and each of it reflects the acoustic waves.
When you visit the Winter Gardens, as I hope you will if you haven't already, take a good look at the walls and floors. In a day and age when design in our public building seems to be functional rather than impressive, this place deserves closer inspection. Tiles, thousands of them, adorn this wonderful building from the moment you set foot inside to the stairwells and the walls.
And the whole of the foyer is a Tesario floor, a mosaic floor, and each piece is about maybe half an inch. And when we restored it, when Michael Leverley, the restorer, he replaced 55,000 pieces. So how many is in the floor is incredible. And over the years, it had had a lot of wear and tear, and they tried to repair it, and they put concrete in it, and then they'd had you know, a JCB driven over it, all these horrendous stories.
Mike Reevely is the founder of Reevely Ceramics. His team are responsible for the TLC which has brought a gleam back to the tiles. They have been trodden on by generations since they were first painstakingly positioned all those years ago.
When we first came along, there were large areas which were missing. They'd been infilled with concrete and cement. So some repairs had been attempted, but they were all higgledy-piggledy and all over the place. So we had to take all those out and replace those as well. So it's been quite a long process. We're almost there now, just a few little bits to finish off. And then after that, we're actually coming back again to do the tiling and the architectural ceramics, which are on the walls and up the stairs and around and about elsewhere. But initially, we're just doing the floor.
Which is a big enough job by itself, that looks, because this is the front of house, isn't it? When you think of how many thousands of pairs of feet have walked across here over the decades, I mean, no wonder it's had a bit of a battering, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you imagine all the people who've come to the Winter Gardens over the century or more that it's been open, and this floor has seen a lot of feet travelling over it from the stars of the period, you know, and obviously the audiences come right through here. There's the main entrance, so they all come through here, and it's remarkable that it's actually still in reasonably good condition. Generally, it's just that there was obviously a few problems, but it's now hopefully good for another 100 years.
Wow. And the style, just take us through, perhaps you're an expert. When this kind of creation, it looks like a mosaic to me. There's certainly elements of flowers, leaves perhaps that's used. How would you describe it? What was the theme of this piece of work?
Well, originally there were Roman mosaics, and that's where we understand mosaics come from. And in the 19th century, it became a sort of popular form of flooring, and there were various companies producing this type of flooring. The various patterns that they produced were based on sort of some quite often classical motifs and what have you, and around floral things. Each floor was designed specifically for the area that it was to cover.
And what about your career? I mean, somebody who's doing this line of work, I imagine there aren't many people like you around in this day and age. And from what you hinted, what you just said before, I guess you've worked all over. Is this one of the more unusual commissions you've had, or is this fairly standard now in this day and age where you've been asked to try and save a bit of history?
We're more increasingly being asked to go further afield, and we have done quite a few of these floors now. This one is perhaps one of the larger pieces of work we've done. Well, it ranks amongst the bigger sized pieces of work we've done. So it has been, without doubt, something of a challenge. But yeah, we've enjoyed it, and it has worked out pretty well.
You must have the patience for saying, because you talk to somebody who's only ever grouted and tiled a bathroom, so never mind a floor. So when you come and see you do this, and I imagine just over your career as well, you must have taken quite a time and effort to learn the trade and make sure that you're putting back, as you said before, something that's going to last for a long, long time.
Yeah, well, I'm fortunate in that I've got the background in ceramics, and we've gradually built up a team of us. I've brought on a couple of people who are learning the trade, or they've learnt it now, and so they've come and helped me. The difficulty is finding people who'll do this sort of work, and training up people in order to do it in the future. So as somebody who's getting on in years. It's nice to know that there are other people coming behind me, and I'm trying to get people to come in with me in order that such floors such as this can once again sort of, if they're damaged and what have you, there are people around and able to conserve and restore them.
It's great to hear. I mean, it's a labour of love, I can tell. I mean, I'm sure it is a job, but, at the end of the day, you must love what you do because it takes time and effort and patience, as I say, to do something like this. It's nice to hear you talking so warmly about a trade that you still clearly enjoy.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is it is very satisfying when you actually complete a job and you see the finished result, and it's a lot of work and it's painstaking, and you do get frustrated at times with difficulties and this, that and the other. But at the end of the day, it really is worthwhile, and it is, yes, a labour of love.
Great stuff. And what do you think of the Winter Gardens? I'm sure you've heard about the plans.
Yes, well, the Winter Gardens are fabulous. It's a fabulous theatre. The decorative sort of elements, especially in the foyer where we are at the moment, are just magnificent. The ceramic work on the walls and the floors are second to none. They really are a fine example of the very best of 19th century ceramic work, architectural ceramics at their peak.
Do you think it's among the best in the country?
It certainly, because I would say it ranks amongst the finest examples of this sort of work, without a doubt.
Well, great. It's good to hear that. It's good to hear that it'll be here for some time to come, and people will be able to enjoy this when they come through, into the Winter Gardens in the coming months and years, hopefully.
Yeah, well, one of the beauties of ceramics is that it does last. And as long as it's looked after, as long as you take care of it, then it can last forever. You can see examples of 5,000-year-old pieces of ceramic which are in still pretty good condition. And this could equally last for centuries.
And it's not just tiles and acoustic panels. There's the wood. Masses of it. Everywhere. From the bar to balustrades, the auditorium floor and wall panelling. But we're lucky in having a master craftsman amongst our team of volunteers. Bernie was an apprentice with the famous Waring and Gillow furniture manufacturers. He has brought his skills to the gardens and is now inspiring other volunteers to bring life back to the decorative woodwork.
I used to work at Waring and Gillow's in Lancaster. I was there from the age of 15 to 20, and the firm shut down then, but I was fortunate to become a French polisher.
No, imagine a place like this, French polishing and anything to do with woodwork is vital, because the place is full of wood, isn't it? We're sat in the reception area.
Yeah.
So I guess your skills are pretty vital, aren't they?
We think that the wood came from some of the old boats that used to be, because it was a ship breaker's yard. We've done the auditorium as well, we've only got the balcony to do, and we'll be 140 by the time we've got to this. Yeah, so this was in a pretty poor state really, and what we've done, we've tried to retain some of the old finish, and we've used Terps, a mixture of Terps methylated spirits to wipe it and sanded it all down. And then we've put another, called a rubber, a French polish on, and that's the finished article. And can you tell from your experience, how good a finish it is? Are you proud of what you do? It looks fantastic. Indeed, we are very, very proud of it, And what state was it in when you started work? Well, it was something similar to the one across there. If we go into the foyer later, do you want to? Yeah, go for it. We'll go off into the foyer now. After you. When we did the foyer, we used the old-fashioned technique we stripped it all down and stained it as in the old days. Nowadays we use a varnish to cut out the 2 or 3 areas of work, you know. This had 3 or 4 coats of paint on here, and this was the bar from the old Battery Hotel in Morecambe, and we revived all this to keep it, same style, isn't it? Yeah. Well, it was situated on North Road in Lancaster, now part of the Lancaster University campus. And whilst there's a lot of talk about the world-class university, there's very little talk of the world-class furniture place you had in, and the amount of skills there, I mean, just a portion of them, you know, the skills of the cabinet makers and the joiners and things like that. I'm surprised it's never been revived as a trade name. And whilst we had a lot of, well, not a lot, but industrial problems, that it was taken over by Great Universal Stores, Isaac Wolfson, who then run it all down. But there was never anything. It was on different levels, was the factory, and I've shifted many a wardrobe through the lifts. And of course, you're talking about the heyday of boat building and things like that. And we did the last passenger boat from built at Barrow-in-Furness. Yeah, the Oriana. Yeah, right. And we helped to furnish that.
Gillows
Gillows, yeah. So it's it's wonderful to do. I'm pretty proud of it, really. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of it. This is a huge theatre, and it would be really against the trend. But I'd love to see it at home. Love to see it. If we had the same team, and if it were, for example, had a theatre like the size of the Grand at Lancaster, well, that's like only about half or a third of the size of this. But wouldn't it be marvellous if, in fact, it come to fruition again? This is Muriel, a colleague for many years.
Hello.
Hey, how are you doing? So I'm just wondering, just asking about the tricks of the trade and the things that you've learned. So what kind of things have you learned from this good man?
Well, it's been a long apprenticeship. Well, a lot of it, as I've said, is sanding down, getting in corners, because Bernie is a perfectionist. Yeah. So you keep going up and down in the corners, like painting, varnishing.
Varnishing.
Yeah. And
it must be really satisfying when you see over there. We look
Bernie
over there.
Finishes it off.
Yeah.
It's great.
Is it?
Yeah. The bar was. We did the bar, didn't we? And some of this panelling in the auditorium.
It looks superb. It looks new, doesn't it? The bar work is amazing.
If you'd have seen it.
What was it like?
Yes. It was, well, kind of derelict, wasn't it, Bernie? It had no ceiling in the bar. It was...
Without me introducing this, I was just saying to Nigel, the fact that when we did the foyer, it was thick with paint, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yes,
despite the fact we requested, to keep a bit on, didn't we?
Yeah.
You know,
and then somebody covered it. About 5 layers of paint over the years, you know. Yeah. And the floor was all rough and stony, and we had no lighting, did we, properly, when we started?
So why do you do it? Because it must be hard work.
Well, a bit like Bernie. We were from Manchester originally, but been here 50 years almost. And when I was a little girl, we came every year on holiday. Right. And, it's got happy memories. And then I just fancied coming, really, and started. When I started, there was another girl here, lady, and we had to circle nails in the auditorium, in the wood.
Where the old seats were.
And that was what we were doing. And the men used to come round to take the nails out and the screws out. Yeah. And then we started working with Bernie, and it's just about 12 years. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, so I just think of the hours of time you've spent and all the efforts. It's incredible.
I mean, Bernie spent more than me, but
You're
yes,
a team, aren't you? You've done a really good job.
What we've achieved, haven't we, you know, over those years. Yeah.
I wouldn't have just said to
And
Bernie.
that, did Bernie tell you we've been doing that? You know, the revolving doors. And yeah, we did that, didn't we, Bernie? And it was freezing. Because I think it was winter, wasn't it? And it was absolutely blowing a gale under the door.
It's looking really good. I mean, it looks like there's effort here and good for doing it.
Thanks to our volunteers and the specialists who've helped us where we couldn't do it ourselves, new life has been brought back to the gardens. It's hard to look back on those pictures of rack and ruin when it closed in the late 1970s. The plans we have now should mean that the building will once again play host to guests of all ages for decades to come. That's certainly the aim of our chair, Professor Vanessa.
It's not a heritage project, it's a visionary project. It's to make it last another 100 years so that my family and their children, their grandchildren, will be there to see things in the Winter Gardens. That's what it's there for. And that will create a regeneration effect in Morecambe, where there'll be something that Morecambe people are very proud of the Winter Gardens, and there's an element of love for the building which touches me every week. It's like an old lady coming back to life, somebody said to me.
Back to life, and with a future we'd like you to be part of. Come and see for yourself what's happening. But be warned, you too may be overcome by a sense of love for a building that gets under your skin. In the next episode, we'll hear more about the music, the entertainers and the characters who've graced the Winter Gardens over the years. There's more surprising stories from contemporary artists too, who are now enjoying performing in a venue that's been rebuilt, tile by tile, that we call the People's Palace.